Welcome back to All at Once Well Read. I'm Liz, and today I'm going to be doing the What's on My Bookshelf tag. But before we get to that, let's see what's on repeat. Really quickly, I'll just show you my bookcases. These are up in our loft. I used to share my bookcases with my daughter, but her collection grew very quickly, and so she needed her own. So now these are all mine. These are the Billy bookcases from IKEA. I think a lot of booktubers have these. I chose to get the doors for my bookcases because I didn't want to have to dust my books all the time. And I loan my books out quite frequently, and it's just nice to be able to grab it quick and hand it right to someone instead of having to like dust it off. So these are my bookshelves. The first one on here is a library book, and to be honest, I don't get to the library all that often. Like I mentioned in my newbie video, I purchase all my books for a myriad of reasons. But anyway, I don't get there all that often. So for this prompt, I'm going to show you a borrowed book, one lent to me by my sister-in-law, and that is The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. People have been trying to get me to read Kristin Hannah for years, and I don't know what my hang-up is. I don't know what's blocking me about it. I do know that I'm a relatively stubborn reader, and I tend to only read things when I want to read them. But anyway, Kristin Hannah is definitely an author I want to explore at some point, so I'm gonna hang on to this one until she asks for it back. Sorry. Alright, so the second prompt on here has to do with a book that was given to me as a gift, and I got this book for Christmas from my mom, who found it and was super excited to give it to me because she knows that I'm really into music and reading, and why not marry those two things? So she gave me Nobody Ever Asked Me About the Girls, Women, Music, and Fame by Lisa Robinson. And this one, I have not read this one yet, but apparently it has to do with this woman who spent many years interviewing women in music. And this book offers their unique perspectives and just kind of a behind the scenes glimpse into what that world is really like. This book sounds awesome. I'm really excited to read it. I tend not to gravitate towards nonfiction, so this is one that I will kind of have to talk myself into eventually, but it is something that I will enjoy. I know that, so sometime soon. Okay, this one was really hard for me, honestly, because I have so many books that I could have pulled from my shelves from my childhood, and ones that I'm very excited to read with my daughter when she's a little older. But anyway, I chose The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton. This book is so lovely, and just, I remember reading it and totally sinking in and feeling a deep sense of wonder. And I think that's largely due to the illustrations in this book and just the unique aspect of Milo's travels through this, the world beyond the toll booth. I haven't read this in a really long time, but I want to soon because, again, I think introducing my daughter to pieces like this will be, integral to her life as a reader. I think it's being adapted too, so that's pretty dang exciting. For my magical book, I chose The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This is a hell of a book. If you like fantasy, kind of sweeping tales that really require you to think, this would be a great choice for you. When I was reading this, I remember feeling frustrated because I felt like I was trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together throughout a majority of the book while still enjoying the writing, because she's an incredible writer. But it's sort of, when you get to the end, it sort of feels like this moment where everything is clicking into place, kind of like the staircases at Hogwarts when they all just like shift, and then there's this like boom moment where they all fall into place. That's what this ending felt like to me. I did read this with a student book club at school, and because of that, I feel like I was really like reading closely, and like I took a bazillion notes, which that's just kind of me as a reader. But when I shared my interpretation of the ending, everyone just kind of like sat there silently and was really thinking about that. And if you've read it, maybe you know what I mean, but this is one of those books where you read the whole thing and you're under one understanding of what's going on, or maybe multiple, because it really is like, what? But then you get to the ending and you're like, oh damn, maybe that's what was happening. And for that, I think if what I think was going on was what the author intended, The Starless Sea is one of those mind-blowing books that I think people would really enjoy if they like gaming. And I have to cut myself off there because I do not want to ruin this book for you. If you are interested in reading it, it really is kind of a super complex masterpiece. So when I initially read the prompt, a romantic book, I'm like, okay, well, let me just go to my shelf and grab some steamy romance because I've got some of those. But I decided to take this prompt in a little bit of a different direction, and I chose The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Jenkins Reid. This book, okay, I love this book and it will remain on my favorites shelf forever. But I chose it for this prompt because yes, it does explore love in the romantic sense, but it also explores love in lots of different ways. It explores a love based on respect. It explores love based on friendship. It explores lust. It explores using people. It explores love in, various genders. It just really is expansive in that way. That's not to say that other authors do not do this. We have a book market that's becoming more and more inclusive and representative in many, many ways. But I really, really love Jenkins Reid, how she really takes care in exploring each of these different versions of love and romance and things like that. And I just think this story is one that will stick with me for forever. So anyway, if you want just a wonderful book, please read this. Just read it. It's incredible. All right, yeah, let's talk about Steamy Books. Why not? So I'm going to break this down into two categories: bad steamy and good steamy. So bad steamy. Last summer I read Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This book made me uncomfortable, and I can handle a lot when it comes to books, so I don't know, when a book gets to that sort of like trashy X-rated level where I'm sitting there and I'm so deeply uncomfortable, and like if I'm in public, I'm like, oh no, don't anybody look at what I'm reading kind of thing. Then to me that resorts to some things as an author that I'm not really down with. So that's the bad steamy one. Sorry, Talia Hibbert. I know people love this series. It's just really not for me. Okay, again, that's not to say that I'm not down with steamy books at all, because I can appreciate some steam, like, anyway. The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker is one that I feel does Steamy in a tasteful way, and it doesn't totally overshadow all of the other things that she's got going on in the book. This book is about a romance. It's a hate to love, but it's also about a lot of other things, and I think that that's what makes this book sit on my favorite shelf, is that the cast of secondary characters is just incredible, and the storyline itself is engaging. The romance is great too. The steaminess is there, but it's not in your face as much as like Get a Life, Chloe Brown. So yeah, The Simple Wild, man, this one, it just makes me feel all kinds of things. It totally made me sob. And the one that came after it, Wild at Heart by K.A. Tucker, was just as good and maybe even better. I love this series. I have not read the third one, and I want to say it's called Forever Wild. Anyway, I haven't read that one yet, but I will eventually, because K.A. Tucker has created a world and a romance series that I really, really love, which is not something that easily happens with me. Okay, I don't really have a ton of old books, but I do have a few, and one of them that I have was given to me, actually two. They were given to me by my aunt, and they are the New Education Readers. This is book one. I have book two, but I also have a 4.5-year-old, and it's somewhere. But anyway, this was published in 1900. It's very old. It was used, I think it was like a school book to help kids learn to read. And yeah, so this is one of my oldest books. I do have a few more kind of in this vein from my aunt and from other people. I have like a Shirley Temple storybook that's also very old. Anyway, I've got a few. A book that makes me happy is called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charley Mackesy. This book was given to me by my mom, and I think she gave it to me around like spring, like in the heart of virtual learning at the spring of 2020. And I was a wee bit fragile at that time, so this book like really hit me hard, and I just think it's glorious. What I love most about this book is that the illustrations are just incredible, and what I said to my students when I talked about this book was that I feel like I could make a poster of any one of these pages and stick it up in my classroom, because it's just, you can learn something or like feel something specific from every single one of these pages. This is a really special piece, and I hope everyone can read it at some point, because I will continue to return to it throughout my life. Another book that makes me completely happy is Book Love by Debbie Tung. This is kind of like a graphic novel-y piece, and it really talks about what it means to be a book lover and to need to go to the library or need to go to the bookstore and to fall in love with story, and to kind of like be a recluse and not want to hang out with people because you'd rather be reading. So any book lover, this would be a great gift for book lovers if they haven't discovered it already. But it's just funny, and it feels really close to home, and it feels like when you read this book as a reader, you feel so very seen, and who doesn't need that these days? A book that makes me laugh is Dear Girls by Ali Wong. This was given to me by my brother-in-law a few years ago for Christmas, and I remember cracking it open while my dad and my husband were watching football one night, and I was sitting on the couch with them and just reading while they were watching, and I was in stitches. I could not stop laughing. Like, they would look over at me every few minutes and be like, "Shut up." Because this book just takes a hard look at motherhood and what it's like to be pregnant and what it's like to give birth and what it's like to be a new mom. And it just like takes such a humorous spin on what so many of us have experienced. And I don't know, I texted my friend who had recently become a mom, and I was like, you have to read this book immediately, because it's just that funny. And Ali Wong, I mean, come on. Okay, a book that makes me emotional is Dear Edward by Anne Napolitano. This book is the story of a boy who goes on a plane ride with his parents and brother, and the plane crashes, and this boy is the only survivor of this plane crash. And it's about him figuring out how to move on from that, how to heal. He kind of has a found family situation. It's so good. Oh my gosh. And it really does make me sob toward the end of the book. So it's just really lovely. It's beautifully written. The characters are very well realized in the book, and the relationships that they have. It's just really a fantastic book. I love it. Another book that makes me emotional is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This is a very expansive story of one man named Cyril in Ireland. I think the book starts in the 1940s and then it progresses through Cyril's entire life. This book is incredibly sad and heart-wrenching, and it really explores what it was like to be gay in the in Ireland during this time period. There's a lot of different characters that come through Cyril's life, but it's mainly about him and his struggle, essentially. And holy man, did it make me cry. This is a hell of a book. Quick side note, if you read and enjoyed The Heart's Invisible Furies, or that premise sounds interesting to you, I would also highly recommend Take Nothing With You by Patrick Gale. This book is so lovely, and I remember reading it shortly after I read The Heart's Invisible Furies, and it did a lot of the same things to me as a reader. So also sitting on my favorite shelf, another great selection. An ending that I didn't love was What Lies Between Us by John Mars. This book spends a lot of time setting up the premise and digging into why things are the way that they are for the two main characters in this book. There's a third one that's introduced later in the story, and then at the very end of the story, things get totally cattywampus and get upended, and it's sad. And I think I just wanted something different. Like, I wanted a different kind of justice to be served. I understand what the author was doing. I can appreciate that, but it was different than I expected, and it sort of left me unsatisfied. So yeah, sorry John Mars, this one just like didn't sit right at the end. A book I wish had illustrations is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I don't have my copy because my dad is reading it right now, and I will loan that thing out until it's tattered and worn and needs to be replaced because it's such a good book. Plenty of people have interpreted the characters in The House in the Cerulean Sea through art. If you're interested, there is so much fan art out there, and it's all incredible. But I really want this book to be adapted to the screen. I think it would be excellent in the style of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and anything like in that kind of vein. It's so lovely. I will sing this book's praises until I'm blue in the face. It is like a hug. I would love to read on a rainy day is If We Were Villains by ML Rio. If you know me, you know that I adore this book, and I am patiently waiting for ML Rio to come out with something else because I devour this book every time I read it, and I just want more from her. This is a campus story. It's set on a campus where students are studying acting, and specifically with focus on Shakespeare. There's a pretty good mystery that runs through this thing. The writing is incredible, the story is awesome, the characters are riveting, and I just love this book so much, and I think atmospherically it's one of the best that I've ever read, and probably my favorite scene from any book is in this one, and there are a few that are just like right up there. Chef's kiss. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked what you saw, click subscribe, tell your friends. I've got lots more coming, so I'll see you for the next one.